Hello everybody, welcome back to Google Data Studio again. We're looking at embedded versus reusable data source today. So data source as an asset. Prior to August, data sources in Google Data Studio were reusable data sources, which meant that when you share the report with your collaborator, you have to share the data source separately as a different asset. But with the new change that came into effect on August 24th, all the data sources added to a report becomes embedded in the report, so that when you share a report with a friend, with a collaborator, they see this as embedded data source and they can make changes to the report. So some of these changes that I can make to the data set in the report and at the same time update your report includes creating calculated fields, creating parameters, renaming the fields, changing the field types and changing the aggregation, changing the embedded data source connection and the credentials needed if they had access to the same credentials as you do. For example, in Google Analytics, where you could be sharing the same credentials to access the data, so they can now actually change where your data source is coming from. So in this guide, in today's video, I'll be using COVID-19 cases in Nigeria, which is the report I created in my previous YouTube video. So go check that out if you haven't already. Because this was done earlier in the year, these all the data sources I've used are reusable. So imagine these 6 data sources. I want somebody else to work on COVID-19 cases in Nigeria, so I need to share the data sources as a separate asset to them. But with embedded data sources, this data is embedded in the report and they can make whatever reports they want with the data that I already have in the report. So I'm going to go to another Google Data Studio account that I have and show you what it looks like as a collaborator with a reusable data source. So if I go to resource manage data sources, I'm going to see that this is reusable, and the edit, the duplicate buttons are grayed out because I cannot edit or even copy the data sources. I have limited access to what I can do with the data sources as a collaborator with an edit access. So what in reality this means that if I'm working with somebody, I had to share the data source separately with them, and then whatever changes they do do not reflect the changes that I do myself. So I'm back to my main Google Data Studio report, and I'm going to add a new so yeah, here I'm just highlighting that I had the calculate but create fields button blue and ready to use as a data owner. And now I'm going to see that this is the same when I have an embedded data source in my report. To do that, to create an embedded data source, just add data to your report. So I'm going to do just that. Add the first data I can grab into this report. Do not change any setting, just leave it as it is, so the report editors can create charts using the new data set, and they can add dimension and metrics not currently included in the report. That's what I want. I want it to be a collaborative effort. I want to be able to do what I want and they do what they want, and later we could go over it and make sure that it reflects our overall goal with the report. So to do this, I've added the data. I'm just going to have a view of what the data actually looks like. So this is a reference data of Nigerian states and their longitude, latitude points. I've manually created this table. And yeah, so countries, states, and I've named them states affected because it's related to COVID, and their longitude, latitude points. So I just doing this to have a view of the data. It's not needed for any of the embedded reusable settings that you need. So now that we've seen how the data looks, let's go to the back end. We see that this new data is embedded, and we have a button that can make it reusable. So I'm going to flick back to my second GDS account, where I'll show you what you would see as a collaborator. So now the data owner have shared an embedded data source with you. Oh, I need to refresh this actually. So I'm just going to refresh the report so that the changes made by the data owner can be seen by the collaborator. So you're working simultaneously and everything is changing as soon as possible. Yeah, a bit of delay here and there, but it's I think I like Google Data Studio in terms of collaborations, and this embedded setting takes it up a notch. So now as a collaborator, I can edit, I can duplicate this data source. As you can see, I can add a field, I can add a parameter. I'm only restricted in allowing the data set to be used in community visualization, in changing the data refreshness, and in changing the data credential needed to view the report. So the data owner still has all the ability to change anything, but as an editor I have restricted both settings that I need to improve this report. So now we've seen embedded, we've seen reusable. Now I'm going to make this embedded data set reusable. So manage added, so click make reusable, but I'm going to leave the setting ticked where I say grant report editor's access. So what does this do? This makes my reusable data set act as an embedded data set. So I now am sharing a reusable data set, and I'm going to switch back to my collaborator account, and I just need to refresh again. And what can you see? Now this is reusable, but I'm going to show you that I still have the same access as I did when it was embedded, because the data owner left the setting on for give collaborators the ability to add a field, add a parameter, change default aggregation, change the data type. And yeah, so I've shown you reusable data sources, embedded data sources, reusable data sources with embedded kind of settings. And I hope you found this useful. Leave a comment below. Tell me